book today by the fire.
Sorry.
It's okay. I had the pleasure of reading his book today by the fireplace, and actually his inclination towards the native faith and connecting with the mythology and the Slavic gods started very, very early on in his early childhood, where the gods would actually present themselves to him in visions or dreams. And he didn't know how to identify them, so he began searching in the mythologies of the other cultures, like the Roman culture, the Greek culture, the Egyptian culture, or even the Indian culture, until later he came to understand that it was actually the gods that were indigenous to his tribe, his region, his culture, which was the Slavic native faith. And this was the catalyst that actually encouraged him to discover more and map more of this forgotten knowledge, which he's very graciously and very effectively put into books. There's been several publications. I think he'll tell you about that more when we hand the torch over to him. And they've been wildly successful, although this is still very much a niche area in Slovakia. People are quite skeptical of this form of spirituality, or any kind of form of spirituality that veers away from the traditional Christian one. We're a predominantly Catholic country. Weleslaw has done a lot of work in terms of popularizing the native faith, and he aspires to continue to do so. And so we're very happy to have him with us, and we hand it over to you, Weleslaw. Thank you.
Môžete sa prosím vás, odtíšiť? Presne, ďakujem.
OK. Takže dobrý deň. Je mi potešením byť s vami. Moje meno je Weleslaw. Civilným menom sa volám Peter Kuzmišin. A dnes by som vám rád porozprával niečo o slovanskej viere, pôvodnej viere starých Slovanov ešte z predkresťanských časov.
So good evening. It's a great honor and pleasure to be here with you today. Weleslav's name said his sort of civil name is Peter Kuzmišin, so you'll find his book under the name Peter Weleslaw Kuzmišin. Weleslaw is his chosen name. And today he will talk to us, he'll share his perspective on the Slavic native faith and on the practices and traditions that were alive in this region before the arrival of Christianity.
Ja osobne sa zaoberám obnovou pôvodnej predkresťanskej viery Slovanov už hádam 20 rokov. Napísal som niekoľko kníh zaoberajúcich sa touto tematikou. Prvou z nich je kniha hovoriaca o bohoch starých Slovanov. Druhá kniha volá sa Kruhy starých Slovanov a pojednáva o sviatkoch z tohto obdobia, na základe ktorej vlastne aj dnešný webinar bude. A pripravuje sa k vydaniu tretia kniha o čarodejných bytostiach.
So Weleslaw has been active in the efforts to revive this pre-Christian legacy and the authentic faith of the old Slavs. He's an author of several books. The first one of them is called Gods and Goddesses of the Old Slavs. And this one is about gods and goddesses of the old Slavs. The second one, entitled Slavic Circles, is more about the rituals, the practices, the customs throughout the calendar year. And it's on this book that today's presentation about Halloween is based on. And the third book is also in the making, and that will look into the different other creatures that inhabited the supernatural world of the Slavs. So there are many other beings aside from gods and goddesses that are fascinating, and that's what he's writing about at the moment.
Založil som náboženskú obec, ktorá sa volá Svetohaj rodnej viery, ktorej cieľom je práve obnova predkresťanskej viery Slovanov, vykonávanie obradov, rituálov a slávenie posvetných sviatkov. Dnes vám vlastne poviem niečo o pôvodnej viere Slovanov tak, ako ju pravdepodobne vyznávali dávni Slovania. A konkrétne sa zameriame na blížiace sa obdobie príchodu zimy, ktoré začína v podstate práve dnešným dňom.
So Weleslaw is also a founder of the sacred grove of the native faith, which is dedicated to bringing back this legacy, to reviving this legacy, and also to carrying out ceremonies and rituals based on the ways of our ancestors. And today we will look at the period of winter, which is starting today with the special day, 31st of October. So let's go into the presentation.
Takže mnohí z vás určite už počuli o Halloweene a vlastne mnohí z vás aj vedia, aký je jeho pôvod. Ten je naozaj prastarý a vychádza z keltského sviatku Samhain. Tento posledný prelomový deň, či skôr noc, je práve stanovený na toho 31. z noci na 31. novembra na 1. októbra na 1. novembra a bol posvetným nielen u Keltov, ale u rôznych všakovakých kultúrach skrz celý svet a pravda, že bol posvetným aj pre starých Slovanov.
So many of you are already aware that Halloween has ancient roots. It's anchored in the Celtic celebration of Samhain, but this time, these days, sort of that transition night from sort of summer into winter, the end of October and the beginning of November, so tonight, has been honored and considered sacred in other traditions and in other parts of the world and in other cultures. And of course, it was a hugely important period and a very important day for the Slavs as well.
Mohli by sme si položiť otázku, že prečo je to práve na začiatok, že prečo je to práve tento deň alebo táto noc. Ak si vlastne zrátame dni od uplynulého sviatku jesennej rovnodennosti a zrátame si dni do blížiaceho sa vlastne zimného slnovratu, tak zrazu zistíme, že práve dnešný deň je niekde uprostred. Uprostred je skôr celý týždeň, 7 dní tohto obdobia je presne uprostred vlastne jesennou rovnodennosťou a zimným slnovratom.
So you might wonder why this time it's not random choice of a day or of a date. Today or this week is more or less in the middle of the period between autumn equinox and winter solstice. So it marks the middle point. It's not just today, it lasted for an entire week, so 7 days. So that's why this is that special time. It's not just in the calendar and it's not random.
A práve v tomto období, alebo v tomto dni, ktorý začína vlastne to 7-dňové, dá sa povedať 7-dňové obdobie, kedy nastáva prelom medzi letom a zimou, mohli by sme povedať medzi svetlom a temnotou, sa verilo, že sa práve pootvárajú brány medzi svetmi, ktoré bohmi boli v podstate zatvorené, aby sa zabránilo prieniku rôznych bytostí z rôznych svetov a kvôli bezpečnosti vlastne tieto brány boli zatvorené. Avšak práve v tomto období medzi letom a zimou, čo je práve dnes, sa akoby tieto dvere trošku poodchýľujú a vzniká tam taká malá štrbina, ktorá je vlastne príležitosťou, aby bežný človek mohol sa znovu stretnúť s bohmi, so svojimi predkami a vlastne ďakovať im za to, čo sme dostali, prípadne žiadať ich o svoje potreby.
So today marks the beginning of this week, of this special week, which is an important transitional time or milestone event in the year, because our predecessors believed that it's at this time that summer transitions into winter. And it was at this time that the veil or the doors between the worlds, between the world of the living, between the world and the world of the dead and the world of gods, that is normally closed, kind of open, slightly ajar, just a little bit, to allow us to connect with gods, but also to connect with our ancestors and to ask them for favors, to thank them for the blessings received. But it also opened up space for like spirits and beings crossing into our world.
Toto posvetné prelomové obdobie starí Slovania volali zádušnicami alebo sviatkom džadov, dedov alebo sviatkom predkov. Po tomto období nastáva obdobie páračiek, priadok a veľmi temné obdobie stričných dní.
So our predecessors in Slovakia called this period zádušnice or jadi. It's similar in Polish, I believe, and it's based around the concept of the cult of the ancestors. So this was the time, these were the celebrations and rituals that were largely geared towards sort of communicating with the world of the deceased, with those that came before us. After this week comes that dark time of the year. And in our cultures in Central Europe, this would be marked by certain specific activities that people would engage in, such as in spinning linen, to processing feathers, as we move through the darkest time of the year. So we'll not look at those into such a great detail, but it's essentially the time when we dedicate ourselves into to activities that are more indoors, because we cannot spend so much time outside because the days are beginning to grow shorter.
Ale poďme od začiatku. Z komínov sa dymí, lebo posvetný oheň bol v krboch, bol zapálený v čase jesennej rovnodennosti a dni sa nám rýchlo krátia. Prichádzajú dlhé zimné večery. V minulosti deti sedeli na peci a počúvali strašidelné príbehy, ktoré sa zvykli rozprávať počas nasledujúceho obdobia, ktoré bolo určené na práce už vo vnútri, v domácnosti a napríklad práve na pradenie nití, tkanie, páranie peria, ktorému sa venovali ženy, a muži v tomto období zase pripravovali drevo na zimu, opravovali náradie, čiže tiež boli v podstate v domácnosti. A vlastne všetky hospodárske práce sa presúvajú z polí, sadov a lúk pod strechy domov.
So you can feel into the moment and into the season. So this is the time where you see smoke wafting from the chimneys. This comes from the sacred fire, which is lit at autumn equinox. This is when days are beginning to get very short, while nights are becoming much longer, and all work and activity moves from outside, from the forest, from the meadows, from the fields, into the indoors. This is the time for people to gather, to share stories, and to catch up on the work tasks that are kind of centered around the home. So men would prepare wood For the winter, they would mend equipment and whatever needed to be fixed around the house, while women process goose feathers to make those traditional warm, thick, heavy duvets that our grandmothers still use and that they are still around in Slavic Europe, or to weave or to make these threads, sort of anything that they could do inside and that they had time for now that they weren't working in the fields.
V tomto období sa zvykla taktiež urobiť tzv. Jesenná orba. Bola to záverečná práca, kedy sa zoralo pole a vlastne hospodárstvu a tej zemi sa ako keby dával priestor na spánok, na oddych. A krátenie, pravda, že krátenie denného svitu a predĺžovanie noci až do zimného slnovratu pre našich predkov znamenalo príchod temných božstiev, temných bytostí a vlastne nasledujúce obdobie bolo predznamenané vykonávaniu rôznych čarodenných obradov, ktoré mali tomuto zamedziť.
At this time, people also do the last plowing of the fields. Often this is symbolic. Not the entire fields are plowed, but just a small sections of it. And a little bit of the harvest of the year is plowed into the field as an offering. And it's also because the days are shorter and the nights are longer, there's literally more darkness around in this part of Europe at this time of year. And this is what people believed, that this awakened or invited in more dark deities, gods and goddesses. And they engaged in a number of magical rituals that were usually of the protective nature. So these ceremonies and rituals were to protect them from the darkness that surrounded them at this time.
Ale tento prvý deň, zajtrajší, prvý deň džadov, neskôr volaných aj dušičky, bol zasvetený bohyni Mokoš. Mokoš, čo by matička zem, oblečená do teplých tmavých farieb zeme, ktoré tieto šaty sú ozdobené šperkami z plodov zeme. Vlastne táto bohyňa zo svojho trónu v hodovnej sieni svojho zámku, strážiaca vchod do podzemia alebo priechod medzi horným a dolným svetom, vlastne sedí na tróne a svojimi stýčenými rukami v čase leta požehnáva zem a dáva jej vlastne vlahu a drží teplo. V jesennom období zase skláňa ruky k zemi a požehnáva zem a vlastne dodáva jej plodnosť a dobrú úrodu. Tejto bohyni práve je zasvetený zajtrajší deň.
So today is that special night, is a transition night between summer and winter, and tomorrow is the first day of Zadušnice or Jadi, so that period of sacred time that brings us from summer into autumn. And that first day, so tomorrow, was consecrated to goddess Mokosh. She is the Mother Earth. You can imagine her as a beautiful woman wearing robes of very earthy colors, adorned by the jewels of the earth, by the fruits of the earth. Her palace, and the throne room of which she resides, is at that meeting point of the world of the living with the underworld, with the world of the dead, what you can find under the ground. So she's kind of guardian of that space. And in the summer, she's there on the throne, her hands and arms outstretched towards the sky to invite in the rain and to keep the climate and the earth warm. And in autumn, she lowers her hands to point towards the ground to fertilize it and to kind of prepare it for the next sowing season. So she was the goddess who was celebrated on that day, tomorrow, the 1st of November.
Táto bohyňa Matka Zem je nielen bohyňou úrody a bohyňou zeme, ale aj ako priatka je bohyňou osudu. A preto podobne ako boh Veles, aj ona je zviazaná s podsvetím, kam sa vlastne odoberajú po smrti duše zomrelých ľudí. A veď práve na začiatku to bola práve ona, ktorá dopomohla stvoreniu človeka, a nenadarmo sa vraví, že z matičky zeme človek zišiel a po jeho smrti sa jeho telo aj tam vracia a vlastne platí prach si a v prach sa obrátiš.
So another layer to this goddess, who is the Mother Earth herself, she's also the goddess of faith, of the human faith. And in this way, she's kind of connected to God Veles, who is the god of the underworld. He presides over the realm to which the souls depart after death. And she's therefore connected to that underworld world. Hence, the celebration of the deceased ancestors. So paying honors and respect to the ancestors through her. That's why she marks this period on this particular day. It's said in Slavic mythology that it was goddess Mokosh who stood at the birth, at the creation of human beings, and that we all come from her, and after death we return to her. And as it said, we're ashes, and when we are turned into ashes again, and she is the one who presides over that process, and she is the one who also governs the world of the deceased.
Ako som už vravel, v tento deň, alebo v to obdobie do tých džadov, sa pripravila pôda na odpočinok a v tento deň sa ešte robila posvätná orba, kde netrebalo zorať celé pole, ale v podstate sa jednalo o zaoranie obetín z obradu, ktorý sa vykonal pre bohyňu Mokoš, a tieto obetiny sa vlastne zaorali do zeme, čím vlastne sa uzavrel cyklus zrodu a plodenia.
Oh, excuse me, I'm trying to locate who is not muted, but it's hard because there is a bunch of us. So if you could please mute yourself, if you find yourself unmuted, we would very much appreciate that. Thank you. So to return back to Jadi, or Zadushnice, on this day, this is sort of the double significance of Mokosh as the goddess of faith and also Mother Earth, manifested in the rituals and the ceremonies that took part on this day. And a part of this celebration was the ritual or the sacred plowing of the fields to prepare them for winter and to put them to rest for that winter season. And this is when people brought offerings or gifts to Goddess Mokosh. So it was a little bit of what they harvested that year, and they plowed it into the soil in order to assure her blessings, and in order to ensure that the soil on which they depended was fertile and would bear an abundant harvest in the next season. So this was a ceremonial closing of the cycle.
Okay. Tento obrad sa vykonával zvyčajne mimo svetohája, zvyčajne práve v rámci poľa tej ktorej usadlosti, ale pred touto posvätnou orbou slovanský koldún vlastne vykonal obrad, požehnal tieto obetiny, poďakoval poďakovala, ako aj všetci prítomní tohto obradu, poďakovali za úrodu, ktorú im Matička Zem dala a požiadali ju o hojnú budúcu ročnú úrodu.
So this ritual took place away from the sacred grove, which was that sacred space, a temple of our predecessors, is where they came to pray and speak to gods and goddesses. This happened in the fields outside of that space, but a Slavic sorcerer, who translated as, was present to navigate through this ceremony, to give those offerings, to give those gifts, and to oversee over the ceremony of plowing, to thank Goddess Makosh for her blessings in the season that is just closing, and to ask her that she blesses the fields to be abundant in the next sowing season.
No a pravda, že ako každá slovanská, v podstate každý slovanský sviatok bol vždycky sprevádzaný s oslavou a povedzme s takou slávnostnou hostinou. Ani pri tomto sviatku to nebolo ináč. Vlastne pre toto obdobie alebo pre tento sviatok príznačným jedlom boli lokše, husté polievky z plodov zeme, a to či už hrstkové polievky, kde je šošovica, fazuľa a plodiny, ktoré vlastne boli zožaté. Pravda, že je to aj kapustová polievka. A pri tejto zádušnicovej hostine sa rodina zvykla stretnúť, najesť, osláviť a následne sa odobrali všetci spoločne na hroby svojich predkov.
So as every Slavic celebration, every festivity, this event was accompanied by a feast that was laid out at noon, and that consisted of thick soups made from pulses, so beans, lentils, peas, all that kind of stuff. It's the soups that we eat in the region until today. Sauerkraut soup as well, potato flatbreads. This would be served, the family would gather, would eat, would enjoy, and after that, they would go together to visit their deceased loved ones.
Spolu so svojou návštevou hrobov bolo práve u Slovanov zvykom, že v tento deň vlastne neprichádzali na hroby svojich predkov len s prázdnymi rukami, ale práve toto jedlo prinášali na hroby svojich predkov, kde sa s nimi vlastne hostili. Sa vlastne malo to byť také rituálne pozývanie predkov zo záhrobia, z podsvetia, aby sa vrátili na chvíľu cez tie pootvorené dvere medzi svojich príbuzných a strávili nejaký čas s nimi, kde by mohli vypočuť ich prosby, ich ďakovania, aby mohli radiť svojim príbuzným. Svojimi potomkami a vlastne, aby sa tam naďalej udržiavala tá kontinuita celého rodu.
So people did not go visit these graves empty-handed. They would take sort of offerings as little rectangle-shaped cakes filled with jam or poppy seeds to give to the deceased family members and friends. in order to invite them back into this world, to make use of those doors between the worlds being left open ajar slightly at this time of year. So this was done so as to speak to them, so as to ask for their advice, ask for favors, to thank them, and above all, to maintain the continuity of life and the connection to the roots.
Z toho istého dôvodu sa vlastne na hroboch, mohylách zapaľovali ohne, ktoré tiež mali lákať vlastne tie duše, aby sa vrátili z podsvetia skrz to svetlo medzi svojich príbuzných, aby im dali nejaký taký svetelný bod, kam sa majú vrátiť. Na chvíľočku, v minulosti to boli ohne, vátry, častokrát, neskôr, pravda, že už to boli sviece, nejaké lampy, a to vlastne ostalo až do dnešných dní, kedy vlastne jedlo už málo kto nosí na hroby, ja áno, ale vlastne zapaľujeme na hroboch našich predkov práve sviece a istým spôsobom, alebo to poviem neskôr.
So it was part of the ritual and part of the festivities was also lighting fires or bonfires at mounds and in graveyards to kind of call these predecessors back in, to light their way back into our world, to stay with us for those precious few moments. And this is a custom that is maintained across Slavic Europe until today. Of course, we no longer light fires or bonfires. This changed into candles that we take to cemeteries and light at the graves of our loved ones. So it's one of these ways in which the ancient customs are still very much alive and practiced.
No a tu sa dostávame späť vlastne k Halloweenu. Halloweenská tekvica, akokoľvek by sme tento sviatok mohli považovať za nejaký cudzí a vlastne Halloweenskú tekvicu za niečo úplne cudzie, môže byť v dnešných dňoch práve považovaná za dávny obrad prenesený do dnešných dní, kedy tekvica, akýkoľvek úsmev zubatý má, je symbolom úrody, symbolom zožatia úrody a horiaci plamen sviečky je práve tým ohňom, ktorý by sme kladli na hroby našich predkov. Takže vlastne tá halloweenská tekvica pre nás v dnešných dňoch môže symbolizovať. Tá tvár môže byť tvár predkov, tekvica, obrad, niečo z úrody a svetlo je práve to svetlo, ktoré má priniesť, alebo ktoré sa má držať v nasledujúcom temnom období a má dopomôcť stretnúť sa s našimi predkami.
So in this way, we can recast the iconic Halloween pumpkin, carved pumpkin with a candle in it, as the pumpkin being the symbol of harvest, so connected to goddess Mokosh. The carved face could be interpreted as the face of a ghost or of ancestors of the deceased ones, of their spirits. And the candle is the light that we use to once light in order to shine away for these souls to cross into our world for a little while, and also to shine light for us as we enter into the dark time of year.
Takže po tomto prvom dni džadov vlastne je isté obdobie, kedy sú poodchýlené dvere našim predkom, aby sme sa s nimi stretli, a potom až do vlastne zimného slnovratu nasleduje obdobie páračiek a priadok, Toto obdobie je úzko zviazané s roženicami. My ich skôr poznáme ako súdičky a vlastne sú to práve bohyňa Mokoš a potom dve jej pomocníčky, šťastená dolia a nešťastená nedolia. Vlastne sú to tri súdičky, ktoré prichádzajú pri našom zrode a dávajú nám istým spôsobom vlastnosti. A práve to, že tieto súdičky sú považované za priatky, budem pokračovať.
After this day or after this period comes the dark time of year, which is practical because people moved inside, so they devoted themselves to household tasks. But much of these were to do with weaving or processing those feathers. But the weaving is especially important in terms of its symbolism, because goddess Mokosh was also seen as the weaver of a human destiny. She is assisted by two helpers, so two more sort of spirits, destiny spirits, or the deities of destiny, fortune and misfortune. You might be familiar with this concept from fairy tales. When a baby is born into the world, it's visited by these three godmothers who give it gifts and determine the child's path through his or her life. So this is all part of this special time. This is all part of Zadushnice or Jadi, and it's all connected. It all takes us back to goddess Mokosh.
Musím vás pochváliť. Pravíte častokrát viac, ako poviem ja, ale veľmi dobre. Vidno, že ste už čítali. Dobre, takže počas tohto obdobia páračiek a priadok, čo znovu to obdobie je tým, že vlastne sa spriadala priadza a magicky to súviselo s tou predstavou Slovanov, že aj bohyňa Mokoš a jej pomocničky spriadajú priadzu našich životov a tkajú nejakú tapisériu alebo nejaký priebeh, nejaký obraz našich životov. Vlastne to pre našich predkov bolo taká mystická, ako keby práve to obdobie to znázorňuje. Hej? Aj v našich vtedajších životoch vlastne ako keby ľudia a ženy priadli, utkávali, robili to isté, čo robila bohyňa s našimi životmi, a práve v tom bolo tá mystika tohto obdobia.
So the mysticism of this time is really embodied in the action of the weaving of the threads, because it was women who did this traditionally, and they were weaving something. They were weaving fabric or a tapestry, just as Mokosh was weaving a tapestry of one's life. So it's very sort of symbolic, and it's not just like rudimentary and basic. This was a mystical activity that really epitomized what this period, what this time of year was all about.
Pravda, že toto obdobie tým, že sa vnieslo do domu, často pri práci, pravda, že dochádzalo k tomu, že sa často rozputala nejaká zábava, nejaký tanec, rozprávanie príbehov, rozprávanie starých príbehov a udržiavanie vlastne skrz tieto príbehy, udržiavanie práve viery, vtedajšej viery, oboznamovanie sa s nimi od malička, keď tie deti, ako som vravel, sedia na peci a počúvajú, čo mama rozpráva, aký príbeh zo života bohov, alebo znázorňujúci práve príbehy o bohoch, rozprávky. To všetko utváralo práve svetonázor vtedajšieho človeka.
So these meetings indoors also fulfilled another function. This is when people gather, they would often celebrate, they would have a little fun, a little party, but they would also share stories, fairy tales, and legends. And this is how the Slavic native faith was passed from one generation to another. This is how the legacy was kept alive, because during these meetings, children would be around and they would be listening to the stories of their mother or of their grandmother. So all these tales, they were not just for fun, they were not just fulfilling an entertaining function, they were educational. They were teaching children from the youngest age about the Slavic native faith, about its principles, about the rituals, and so on and so forth.
V minulom webdiári sme si povedali niečo aj o slnečnom a mesačnom kalendári, ktorý bol vlastne využívaný aj v rámci obradov našich predkov. A toto obdobie veľmi úzko súvisí s mesačnými cyklami, ktoré ohraničujú práve isté obdobia. Práve kedy sa začnú džady, vlastne je to po plnom mesiaci, po splne, potom prichádza nov. A ten nov prichádza a od tohto novu, kedy vlastne zmizne mesiac, sa začínajú, tak povediať, strižné dni, strižné od strigy, od nejakého zla. A práve toto obdobie, keďže u Slovanov a v slovanskej viere hlavným princípom viery je udržiavanie rovnováhy, tak aj temné božstvá majú svoje vlastné obdobie a práve toto temné obdobie potom to nové prichádza, kedy vlastne je to najsilnejšie obdobie, kedy sa môžu prejaviť bohovia povedzme zla, temna, ako je Morena, Kaščej, boh noci Di, Ni, a vlastne tieto dni týchto bohov sa potom ustálili v období na dni Kataríny, Ondreja, Barbory, Mikuláša a Lucie.
So the timing of these rituals is based on the lunar calendar. The Jadi or Zadushnica, Halloween, comes after the full moon. And then after that comes the new moon, and the new moon marks the beginning of the so-called witching days, derived from the word witch, because our ancestors believed this was dark time of year, we had a lot of darkness around, so this is when sort of the dark deities and beings are at their most active. This was not seen with sort of like fear or evil. It's simply a part of a balance of life and balance in nature. So there's the balance of darkness and of light. So the deities that would be around at this time of year would be Morena, would be Kaščej, Černobog, and Ni. So they would be believed to be at their strongest as it gets so dark outside. And later on, sort of these festivities or rituals and ceremonies dedicated to these deities evolved into saint feast days of St. Catherine, St. Martin, St. Nicholas Day, St. Lucia, and St. Barbara. And they are celebrated in Slavic Europe until today, in Slovakia too, and we refer to them in a folk tradition, in folk culture as witching days, and they have roots in this pre-Christian period.
A práve počas týchto dní sa vykonávali ochranné obrady, ktoré mali zabrániť vplyvu týchto temných bytostí, vplyvu na človeka na zemi. Napríklad na Luciu sa omietali kúty, ako keby sa vysvecovalo obydlie. Potom v tomto období, počas týchto dní, často dochádzalo k vešteniu, lebo keďže bola tá brána potvorená, tak sa dali získať cez tú škáru informácie o našej budúcnosti, ktorá bola utkaná už v tej tapisérii súdičkami a dalo sa istým spôsobom zistiť, čo sa môže v budúcnosti stať.
So the rituals and the ceremonies on these days revolved around protection magic. So these were different kinds of personal and family rituals that were to protect the family and the dwelling. But the veil, because the veil was between the worlds was thinner, which allowed us to communicate with the ancestors, with the gods, it also enabled us to peek into future, to peek into our destiny, to peek into what awaits. So on these days, people would also practice future telling. There would be different kinds of methods to go around that, and it's still part of folklore on these particular days in Slovakia until today.
Okrem veštenia, tak v budúcnosti všeobecne, pravda, že pre dievčatá a mladé devy bolo najdôležitejším dozvedieť sa, kedy sa vydajú, kedy si nájdu svojho milého. A tak dievčatá v toto obdobie chodili búchať na chliev, stajňu, kde už bol vlastne ustajnený statok z poľa a vlastne toľkokrát, koľko zabúchala deva na dvere, až kým neodpovedalo nejaké prasiatko, kráva svojim zamúčaním, vlastne toľko rokov malo ešte trvať tej deve, kým príde k vydaju. Napríklad takýto obrad.
So there would be the general kind of, future fortune telling, but single girls, for instance, were most concerned with their marriage, with the arrival of their future husbands. So their rituals and practices and the way they practice fortune telling would revolve around that, around their love life and around their chosen one. So one of the ways to do it would be go out and knock on sties and stables and wait for an animal to sound a sound. And based on that, they would count like how many years until she gets married.
Dievčatá napríklad v tieto noci spávali s mužskými nohavicami pod vankúšou, pod hlavou, aby sa im vlastne prisnil, práve vďaka týmto potvoreným bránam medzi svetmi, prisnil sen, v ktorom uvidia tvár svojho nastávajúceho. Potom to bolo rôzne čarovanie, liatie olova cez ucho kľúča, kde do studenej vody, kde sa vytváral obrazec a z toho ten obrazec, keď sa vybral z vody, tak sa dívalo na to, čo sa tam vylialo a z toho sa veštilo, že čo sa môže v budúcnosti stať, čo tam uvidia, aký obraz.
Girls also slept with men's trousers under their pillows at this time when the veil between the worlds was thinner, in order to dream about their future husband, their love to come to them. Another custom that is also practiced until today would be pouring hot metal through the loop of a key into water. Then you fish out that metal when it goes solid in water, and based on its shape you predict the future.
Takže v nasledujúcich dňoch aj v súčasnosti by sme mali dávať pozor na svoje sny a nebrať tieto sny len za také obyčajné sny, lebo práve v tomto obdobie pootvorených dverí, tak ako bolo v minulosti, hoci sa nám to nemusí zdať, nemusí javiť a môžeme si myslieť, že sme v dobe vedeckého pokroku, tieto dvere sú otvorené aj počas nasledujúcich dní, aj v rámci dneška. A my máme tú schopnosť, len sa musíme na ňu trošku naladiť a pripraviť, vnímať posolstvo druhých svetov a vlastne využiť aj v dnešnej dobe práve toto obdobie po otvorených dverí.
So today, just as back then, the veil between the worlds gets thinner at this time of the year. So this is a good time to pay attention to your dreams and not take them granted. Do not dismiss them or forget them. Really tune into the beat of the season and engage in this ancient practice, thereby connecting with the ways of your ancestors. So this is, 2,000 years ago or now, this is still, this is still an opportunity. These days are still an invitation, and today is the beginning of it. Weleslaw, ja viem, že ešte máme zo pár slajdov, ale ja by som to rada v tejto chvíli už otvorila na otázky. Takže som si istá, že nejaké budú. Môže byť?
Ešte dva vstupy a akurát to idem ukončiť vlastne. Dobre? Takže vlastne počas strižných dní sa vykonávali ešte obrady na krížnych cestách, kde sa vlastne trúbilo na rohy, robil sa hluk a čím sa mali odohnať zlé bytosti od ľudských obydlí. Taktiež cesnakom sa pomazávali dvere ako domovov, tak aj stajní, aby vlastne zabránil ten cesnak, bol taká posvetná bylina, ktorá mala zabrániť, mala ochrannú moc a vlastne mali zabrániť príchodu temných síl. To je jeden vstup a druhý ešte jeden.
So aside from fortune telling, we also mentioned that this was time for protection magic, and this could take form of sounding trombones or other musical instruments at the crossroads, or sort of making noise there to repel the dark spirits or the beings that you don't want in your life and in your community. So that would be one way of protecting yourself. Another one uses garlic being believed across cultures and beliefs to have strong protective properties, and again having the capacity to protect people from the dark spirits and the dark beings. So people would draw ornaments on their doors with it, and also mark the spaces in which their livestock lived in order to protect the animals too.
V decembri sa začína taktiež obdobie, kedy deti chodia po domoch s odsielkou, vlastne chodia, a vlastne sa to začína už na toho Halloweena, kedy vlastne chodia deti pýtať sladkosti v Spojených štátoch. U nás to také zvyčajné nie je, ale v minulosti v našom regióne až niekedy v decembri chodia práve deti vlastne spievať po domoch a žehnať domovom a vlastne je to taký obrad ochrany. A v tomto období je ešte niekoľko svetlých dní, ktorý je napríklad, keď príde v tomto temnom obdobie splnu, tak to je zasvetené bohyni Lune, čoby liečiteľke, ktorá má zabrániť alebo dopomôcť tomu, aby ľudia v tom čase neochoreli. A potom je tam ešte jeden významný deň, ktorý poznáme v rámci Mikuláša, Deda Mráza, Mikuláša, a to je práve ochranný deň. Dnes vešiame ponožky alebo dávame čížmy na okno, ale v tom období to bol deň, ktorý bol ochranným dňom pre bytosť nášho predka, pre nášho domovníka, ktorý ochraňoval našu domácnosť.
So today children go trick or treating on Halloween, or at this time of year. In Western societies, it's not so much a custom in Slovakia, but we do, and in the past had a variant of it when in December children would go from house to house, and they would be sort of bringing the wishes of the best. You know, they would bring the light, they would bring the blessings, they would bring the protection, etc., and they would receive a little something for it. So that's our version of sort of doing the Halloween trick or treating. During this dark period of year, we still have days of light, and they happen on full moons when people dedicate or used to dedicate their, the prayers, the time, the worship to goddess Horse, asking her for healing and for protection. There will also be day, which is today celebrated as St. Nicholas Day, which is on the 6th of December. Back in the day, it had an equivalent, but it was not about St. Nicholas, who looks like Santa Claus very much. This would be, if I may ask.
Ania, could you please mute yourself?
Good.
Thank you.
So this day would be another day for protection magic and for asking for protection, and you would connect to your household god or domovik, and I would be a spirit of your ancestors. You would ask for favors, protection, blessing, etc. So that was the predecessor of the modern St. Nicholas Day.
No. A vlastne na záver, týmto dňom vlastne už vychádza ako keby trošičku svetla a už je očakávaný zimný slnovrat, v ktorý sa zrodí nové slnko, nový rok, a o tom si možno povieme na budúce.
So this is a beginning of another cycle, of another story. As we move through December, it becomes noticeable again that, there is the light at the end of the dark tunnel. We are getting close to winter solstice, after which days are beginning to grow longer again and night shortening. And that's associated with a whole lot of other beliefs and traditions that we will hopefully explore with you in the future, perhaps in December, to honor the season and the Christmas and Advent and all of that. But for now, I would like to open this up for questions. So if you do have any, please don't be shy, unmute yourself and ask away. This is a wonderful opportunity to connect with Weleslaw, who is a true expert and a practitioner of the Slavic native faith.
I'm just looking here at the chat. I see that Timian had a question about the three darker entities that were mentioned. He was asking, it was Morena, it was Chernobog, and who was the third person that Weleslaw mentioned?
Oh, yes, exactly. It was
Timian.
me. I was wondering about the third dark god. I think somebody has mentioned it's Koschei, but I do not know it. So could you tell us more about Koschei?
On last WebDR, we talk about gods, and Chernobog is God where are connect three sons of Rod, Koschei, Di, and Ni. It's opposite gods of Perun, Veles, and Svarog. As I told before, in Slavic faith, prime thing is balance, and for this reason, if Slavs had three gods of light, Perun, Svarog, and Veles, on other side we can find three dark gods as a Koschei, Di, and Ni. Ni is dragon. It's powerful opposite of Perun. Di is opposite of Veles, and Koschei is opposite of Svarog. And these three gods, we call it Chernobog.
Thank you. So Chernobog is a triple deity. It consists of 3 gods.
We have a great question here by Elena. I don't know if you feel comfortable, if you'd like to ask your question, or you'd prefer me to read it out. Okay, so I will ask Weleslaw. So she's asking, how do you honor your ancestors this time of year? What practices or rituals do you enact?
Skúste dať to do slovenčiny, lebo som to nechytil. Že ako slavím ja osobne?
Áno, že ako vy si vlastne ctíte predkov, čo robíte?
No, ja mám celú jednu izbu obloženú predkami. Vlastne máme takú jednu spálňu v dome, kde na stenách mám obrazy mojich rodičov, mojich prarodičov, mojich praprarodičov a vlastne v tej miestnosti veľmi rád spávam. Čiže to je tá spomienka, tá súnáležitosť s predkami, čo sa týka obrazotvornosti. Ale v rámci všetkých obradov sa tí predkovia vlastne nachádzajú v mojom živote a pravda, že nie je to len tým, že idem na hroby svojich predkov, ale ja osobne žijem na dedine, v dome, z ktorého pochádza môj otec, môj dedo, čiže ja vlastne vnímam svojich predkov tu, kde žijem.
So Weleslaw is saying, I'll begin with the bedroom. There is a special bedroom in this house where there are images, photographs of his ancestors, parents, grandparents. No?
Paintings.
Paintings of parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents. So that's kind of iconography of his ancestry, and he very much likes to spend time and to sleep in that bedroom, also to connect with those who came before him. But he also lives in a house in which his father and grandfather came from, so there is a connection there as well. A ona sa ešte pýtala, že aké rituály alebo ceremónie teraz robíte v tomto čase.
Ako si spomínala, že nesiete jedlo na hroby a tak, že v tých detailoch možno.
Vlastne tak, ako ja udržiavam ten zvyk našich predkov, alebo snažím sa ho priniesť do nášho života. Zajtra ráno vlastne ja mám vedľa domu vlastný svetohaj, kde zajtra zapálim vatru a vlastne svoje deti sa snažím viesť k tomu a vlastne vždycky im ukazujem, vlastne oni sú momentálne najviac vťahovaní do všetkých obradov, ktoré vykonávam. Takže zajtra po raňajkách sa zapáli veľká vatra, vykoná sa, zoberiem rýľ, vykoná sa obrad, ktorý som spomínal, do toho svetohája predložím na taký oltár jablká, zemiaky, papriku, ktorú máme vlastnú, vypestovanú, položím ich na ten oltár. Zaspievame si s deťmi, obídeme celý dom do kolečka, čím sa budeme snažiť, vlastne im vysvetľujem svojim deťom, že vlastne toto je naša rodná hruda, tu žili naši predkovia, žijeme momentálne vďaka Bohom aj my. A vlastne potom zoberieme rýľ a tie posvetené jedlo zakopeme do brázdy, ktorú mám za domom, pole. Vrátime sa k obedňajšiemu stolu, kde sa najeme. Manželka, dúfam, upečie vlastne práve pečivo, o ktorom som hovoril. Nie som si istý, že či to bude presne to pečivo, ktoré sa popisuje v historických informáciách, že to je nejaké pečivo, koláč plnený džemom, ale niečo sa upečie a s tým jedlom a sviečkami pôjdeme tiež na hroby predkov, kde ja okrem zapálenia vlastne tých sviečok trošičku z tých koláčov ulomím a nechám ich na hroboch predkov. Čiže to je taký rituál zajtrajšieho dňa.
So this is very rich and multi-layered, but I'll do my best. Weleslaw has his own kind of sacred space, sacred grove, besides his house. So tomorrow he will light a bonfire there. And then he and his children, whom Weleslaw is now introducing into these ways, as is custom to do at this time of the year, to pass stories and traditions, they will take part in the ritual of bringing in a little bit of harvest of this year. So there'll be some apples and potatoes and whatever was born in the fields and in the gardens today will be placed on the shrine, on the altar. Then the family would sing, they would walk around the house, return to this sacred space, and then take spades and work this consecrated now offerings into the field, into the soil.
In this walking around house, it's a kind of ritual where I explain to my children that this is our ancestors, this is our land, this is our life.
So there will be that. Then there will be the giving of the offerings to Goddess Makosh and plowing them or burying them into the soil of the field. After that will be a lunch, will be a meal, will be a little feast that will feature also these special cakes that we mentioned today. That will be prepared by Weleslaw's lovely wife. And then they will take a little bit of this food and they will go visit the graves to light a candle and to leave a little bit of that food for the ancestors, for their souls. So that's his ritual for tomorrow.
And next question could be why I'm doing it? Because for me, next time, this period is time when I sitting close to fire, thinking about ancestors, about my way, about what is behind me and what is in front of me, and it's planning. Start planning what I will do in the future, what I have to do. I will meditate and try to connect with my ancestors and speak with them in the dreams, in the meditation, whatever I can do.
Thank you. Do we have more questions?
Keď rozprávam po anglicky, potom chvíľu čakám, že ma začnete prekladať a dôjde mi, že aha, však ja som to...
Hi, this is Cheryl. How about you describing one of your favorite meals that you look forward to?
Že aké je vaše obľúbené jedlo, na ktoré sa tešíte v tomto období?
My to voláme holúbky, ale neviem ako. Ja som to pravdu povediac už jedol dnes, ale je to vlastne kapustový list plnený mesom a rýžou. Skúsite preložiť, lebo neviem ako povedať.
So this will many of you might know this because this has been brought over to the New World by people who emigrated from Slovakia and from Slavic Europe. It's called holúbky. It's a meal that's like around, it's popular this time of year, and it's cabbage leaves stuffed with meat.
And rice.
Cabbage rolls.
Maybe in the past wasn't rice. Maybe this meat will inside this leaf could be kind of flour or something different, because as we know, in 6th century wasn't rice and potatoes and so on. So it's a little bit different but it's still kind of food from the earth. This cabbage leather and cabbage thing. Cabbage is very important food for next season.
Thank you.
If I may, hi, dobrý den. If I may ask the question that I submitted, I understand that in modern times, and by modern times, I mean, several decades ago, probably through now, I understand there was a tradition of families processing to the grave sites of their family members and loved ones with candles. And this was something that the entire community did at a time. So it was almost like a parade with candles. I haven't seen it myself. I've heard about it. Is that still something that a tradition that is practiced? And is there a little background you can share about that? Thank you.
Sure. So, toto bola otázka o zapalovaní sviečok, o nosení sviečok na cintoríny.
To vo svete nepoznajú?
Prosím?
Že to vo svete nepoznajú?
Keď hovorila, že ona to nikdy nevidela, ale počula, že akože to nie sú len jednotlivci, ale že celé rodiny, celé komunity idú na ten cintorín s tými sviečkami. Že taká procesia.
Preto som si to nechal preložiť, lebo ma to prekvapuje, že sa to... Okay, I'm quite surprised that you only hear it about it, because I thought that it's normal way of connection with our ancestors in the whole world. And yes, it's true. It's happening that family still goes to graves of ancestors, where we light candles. And in this time, in Slovakia, Czech Republic, Polish, I think in Russia, it's really beautiful night when all cemeteries is lighting, and it's really great view.
Yeah. It's a beautiful site. And I'm actually going to go after this webinar, so check back on our Facebook site to have a look at the photos or a little video if I manage to make one, because it really is a very enchanting site with thousands of candles going and lighting up the entire cemetery. It's beautiful.
And what I would like to say, because okay, for us I can hear it that this is not normal in the whole world, and of course, if you are living in New York or Alabama somewhere, you may not live in the place where your family roots are, where your grandparents lived before, and maybe you have no connection with graves, and you have to travel 1,000 miles across country to visit these graves. For this reason, as I told in WebDR, we have this pumpkin. This could be for us in these days kind of symbol of our ancestors, our possibility to connect with them, and when we don't have possibility to visit graves of our ancestors, then we used this pumpkin as a bridge to them, and light of this pumpkin is not only funny stuff of Halloween, but for us Slavs could be way how to make honor to our ancestors and to pray by this light. Mm-hmm. So this is kind of our new ritual. Could be for us could happen new ritual where we will do the same as our grand old ancestors did it, that they walk to graves, and when we don't have possibility to walk to there, then we take it pumpkin and light candle and pray to them, and we can do this holy ritual in this time.
Thank you for the question, Chris. Thank you for your answer, Weleslaw. Do you have more questions? Is there anything in the chat?
Dobry evening.
Oh,
I just have a quick question in terms of offerings. What about a sheaf of wheat? I know in Ukraine and in our heritage, we offer the diduch for Christmas and for Yordan. Is there any usage here during this time of the final sheaf of wheat that's harvested from the fields?
This wheat, no, skúste.
Ano, že či aj u nás, napríklad na Ukrajine sa robia také tie vence.
Áno.
Že či je to aj, áno.
Praskalo mi to, nepočul som. Áno, robia sa, volá sa to Velesova brada, zvyčajne je to vlastne z posledných klasov, znovu to je obrad, rituálny obrad práve zberu úrody, kedy ako som v minulej prednáške hovoril o rituáloch prvého a posledného, kedy vlastne tá obetina, ktorú predkladáme na oltár, predkladáme Bohom, je buď niečo, čo je prvé, alebo niečo, čo je vyslovene posledné. A práve v našom prostredí sa robilo, ale je to skôr obrad spojený s ukončením zberu. Nie s týmto obdobím temna, ktoré nastupuje. Hej. Ale áno, je to obrad. Existuje taký obrad.
Yes, so there is such a ritual in Slovakia too, but it's not so much part of this sort of Halloween and the period that comes after, but it's part of harvest rituals and harvest gratitude rituals. Like we had a webinar about a month ago where we discussed this custom of sacrificing something that's the first or the last to the gods. And that wreath made of wheat, which is called the Weleslav's gate, in here is made from the last cereal that's harvested from the field, and then it's offered to gods. But as Weleslaw says, this comes a little bit earlier in the year for us here. It's a ritual, and it's still alive, still practiced. Yes, Susie, is there something in the chat?
I just want to say, because I'm monitoring the chats, there's a lot of comments about how in the US this doesn't happen, also because of certain aspects of Christianity that discourage these pagan rituals. So despite Slovakia and Slavic Europe being Christian, and for example, our region is predominantly Catholic, the pagan and the Christian cultures coincide, so they coexist, and somehow this All Saints Day has been integrated into Christianity. This is also why we refer to it as Dušičky or All Souls Day. So a lot of these practices have been normalized because the indigenous culture is still very strong here. These people are not people that have migrated to a new land or to a new continent. They've been living here, as Weleslaw says, among his ancestors for decades, if centuries, if not millennia. So it's much more difficult to sever these pagan roots from spiritual practice. Hence, they've been incorporated into Christianity, and hence they coexist. If that answers any of your questions.
Hello, this is Ken. May I ask a question?
Hi, Ken. Yes, please.
Yeah, I had typed it into the chat, but I'll repeat it now. This has been a very interesting discussion. I appreciate it. Is there a general concurrence among researchers in these Slavic traditions and mythology regarding the details that have been presented? Or, what are the less known aspects that are still being investigated?
Takže Ken sa pýta, že či je tam aká zhoda medzi tými, ktorí praktizujú, medzi tými, ktorí skúmajú túto pôvodnú vieru Slovanov ohľadom týchto rituálov a ceremónií, ktoré sa udievajú. A že čo sú také, že oblasti, ktoré sa možno ešte len začínajú skúmať, alebo o ktorých ešte tak veľa nevieme.
No, vlastne tá predchádzajúca prednáška bola 3-hodinová, keď sa dobre pamätám, a tak tam sme toho natlačili celkom dosť. A vlastne tam bolo povedané aj to, že vlastne existujú v rámci momentálnej situácie na Slovensku, v Čechách, Rusku, Poľsku vlastne niekoľko ciest, ktoré sa zaoberajú pôvodnou vierou. Existuje viacero ciest a tieto niektoré idú čisto historickou cestou, niektoré idú viacej spirituálnou cestou, niektoré vyslovene rozprávajú o ufoslovanoch a nedá sa povedať, že čo sa skúma, čo je vyskúmané, lebo nie je vyskúmané nič. A v skutočnosti nevieme nič. Nič nie je 100% pravda a preto a hlavne viera nie je o skúmaní poznatkov, je o prežívaní. A preto tá viera musí byť nie skúmaná, ale prežívaná. A to je celé.
So Ken, we covered this at length in our previous webinar. If you'd like to know more, please get in touch with us. We will direct you to the replay of that event. But basically, there are many ways in which Slavic native faith is approached across countries. Some are more historic, some are more spiritual or esoteric. But as Weleslaw said, it's very little that we know for sure. This is not a matter for kind of very scientific and rigid research. This is sort of spirituality, this is faith, which is to be lived and embodied rather than explored or, understood through facts. And we know relatively little about the Slavs in general, so part of that trend when it comes to historic sources and so on and so forth.
I don't know if I don't know if I did answer question, but. But point of my view is faith is not about exploring, but living. Everything what can do us better people is good. And when we find a way how to connect with our ancestors and with some thoughts of our past, then and we live by that and we kind of explore ourselves through our feelings, our lives, and this is important to be better lighting person.
So if I could just jump in here. So what Weleslaw is saying is that the Slavic native faith is not a learned faith. It's that's factually consumed through words and through books, but it's very much lived, and that's how it's been passed on. That's how it's been able to be maintained despite Christianity being dominant in this region. It's passed on through oral tradition, and it's passed on through custom, like going to the graves of your ancestors to honor them, to bring food, to bring candles, to bring flowers, as is done today in 2021 throughout Slavic Europe. And it really is a sight to behold. I suggest if you don't know, just Googling All Saints Day in for example, Slovakia, you'll get very powerful imagery of that, the cemetery being lit in red candles. Secondly, this return to the native faith, to the indigenous roots of the region and of the culture of the people that are native to this region, the Slavs, It's very much new. It's novel. We're at the beginning phases of this. So this work that's happening now, that's being codified into books, is really at the pioneering state. So there hasn't been a maturation yet where there has been a lot of, let's say, academic research or systematic analysis of this done. It's just in the beginning. So that's also what makes this very exciting. And this is why Weleslaw is such a pioneer. So much of it comes through also through his meditations, through his speaking to his ancestors, through connecting to nature, through participating in rituals during special times of the year where he per se downloads this information and then compares it through other sources, also in the Russian and Ukrainian language, and puts it into these books. So he's very much a leader, which is why it's a great privilege that we have him here today to share his knowledge with us. I hope that answers some of the more academic questions.
Thank you
I would
very
like
much for
to,
the clarification.
yes, you're
I just said thank you very much for the clarifications.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much
for
for
your
the question. So I'll give maybe one more question, but before we do that, we already have questions about the course that we mentioned. So Zizi, would you like to introduce it?
So several of you in the chat were asking about the special discount code, which is a 10% discount for 48 hours after this webinar. The code is Slavic Roots. You also get this in the follow-up email that follows this webinar. And in this, if you purchase this mythology course, which is quite in-depth, it's very much built on the research of studying Weleslav's books. It's also based on our own experiences, Gabriella living in Egypt, I myself living in India, and really being exposed to the pantheon of gods in those ancient cultures. And through that triangulation, being better able to understand the Slavic pantheon, of course, being guided by Weleslav's extensive research and wonderful books. What is more, Weleslaw referred to this 3-hour webinar where a lot of knowledge was shared. This webinar is actually now part of the course. So if you do purchase this course, you will also be able to get the webinar. Lastly, Gabby, would you like to share the screen just to show how interactive that course is?
You know, I would love to, but my connection here is a bit flaky. So whenever I open another window, everything slows down. But since we're on the presentation, I would like to show you the 2 already published books by Petr Weleslaw Kuzmishin. So we mentioned them throughout this event. If you are a Slovak speaker, they are amazing sources of very kind of digestible information, which is rich and varied, and they should be in your library. So this is something to Google if you speak Slovak. If you do not, there is our course for you, and we are also hoping to cooperate with Weleslaw in the near future to write a book on this topic in English so that it's accessible to wider audiences.
I just want to quickly just show that book, which is unfortunately just right now in Slovak, but thousands upon thousands of copies of it have been sold in Slovakia. People got curious about their indigenous roots or their origins. And it's if you are a Slovak speaker, it's very easy to consume. I don't know if you can see it that well on the camera, but it has paintings or artistic renderings of the gods alongside a poem, and then a factual a reconstruction of who these gods were and what they represented. So it's a highly recommended book.
Thank you very much.
So back to our webinar. Is there anyone who would like to ask the last question?
I do.
Yes, go ahead.
Now, I don't know if you could consider this on topic for Halloween, but what the heck? There's some of us here in the US consider Baba Yaga as like a sort of deity or some kind of spirit, while there's people in the Slavic countries who don't consider her as a deity. What is your opinion on this?
Well, that's a big one. Aký je váš názor na Babu Jagu? Niektoré tradície vidia ako súčasť tých božstiev, niektoré nie.
Vlastne OK. Baba Yaga it's, we can say now, even goddess, but on beginning, we have to think about God of wind, Stribok, about very powerful God Stribok, God of wind and earth. Dobre to hovorím? Vzduch, earth. And this God is powerful from many point of views, and one of them is that he has 4 faces to watching all east, west, north, and south. And from this point of view, and when we know it, this Slav's tradition says that exist his daughters, we can say daughters, goddess of little wind, bigger than Melusina and Yaga. And thing is that these 4 goddess, these ladies, they stand on 4 sides of ways, northwest, south, and east. Baba Yaga, I think, is on south. I think is on the west. Maybe for this reason is connect a lot of to west. And but thing is, these daughters of Stribok, they have to help to his sons of wind, many of them, but again to 4 of winds, little wind, Vánok, južný vietor, severný vietor a západný vietor, north wind, and these ladies have to help. And Baba Yaga, in tradition of Slavic faith, don't want to be helpful, honestly, and for this reason she been punished, and she been kicked out from the world of gods and kicked out to our world, and she have to stay in our world, and she is kind of mythical creature of wind. For this reason, Baba Yaga flying on the brush. Yeah. Baba Yaga is on beginning she was a kind of goddess of wind, but she don't want to participate with her work, and for this reason she been kicked out to our world, and basically she kind of transformed to woman, ako keby matku čarodejníc, dá sa povedať, hej. Neviem to teraz povedať presne. Ako keby a takých nie veľmi dobrých čarodejníc, hej. Svojou podstatou nie dobrých čarodejníc. Ako keby stala sa symbolom tej veternej, ale zlej moci, ale veľmi silnej.
So she became kind of the mother of the witches, and sort of symbol of the power of wind, but more of the maleficent aspect of it.
So she, from what I understood, she was a deity in a way, or
Yeah.
from a higher realm, but she misused her powers.
No,
She didn't do her work.
not really that dismissed powers.
Mhm. She didn't do her job, or what?
Yeah, because she wasn't helpful. She still make some troubles. Because she was really powerful, and for this, as a daughter, really powerful god of Stribok, because Stribok is basically most powerful god. For this reason, he had closed mouth to not bring end of whole Przehomir. It's lots of stories about this,
Okay.
even in my books, but it's proof for
Okay.
to
Another time.
long time.
She's the daughter of a very powerful god. She neglected her duties and therefore was kicked out of the godly realm and came to the earthly realm. And she has now become associated with the maleficent side of witchcraft or
Yeah.
witches, like their patron saint.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Patron saint of witches. I like it. Happy Halloween.
Dark witch. Okay, that's an interesting explanation. Thank you very much, Weleslaw. Are there any more questions? I mean, we see them coming through, but we would prefer for you, for the last 2 or 3 questions, for you to actually come on screen and ask them yourself. It makes it more engaging for everyone. So please don't be shy. Is an interesting statement here by Helen, is genealogy a type of modern day ancestor worship ritual? I don't think it's if I can answer it, I don't think it's a worship ritual per se. I think it's just an investigation using the technologies that we have today to map where your DNA is from.
And it's a way of connecting to them, you know, they get to discover their stories and how they live. So it's part of keeping that lineage. Yes. Beautiful.
So it's definitely a way of kind of rebuilding that connection to origin, which is very important, because if we want to know where we're going, we need to know who we are and certainly where we came from, and we can build on the shoulders of those that came before us.
So if that is
Hi.
that. Yes.
Hi.
Hi. I just wanted to ask one quick question. I wrote it in the chat. So I come from Croatia. I'm kind of totally new to your Facebook group and this kind of introduction and exploring the Slavic mythology. But I was wondering how much does it overlap if we look into different countries and different Eastern European kind of history? So if we talk about, you know, kind of, you know, the gods and the traditions, can we say that we were all coming from like different background, or is it really kind of also differing in different countries, and to what extent would it be? So for example, the things and traditions we are talking today about, is it something that then also we can really find it in all different countries the same, or is it a big difference? Kind of, what are the roots? That's basically the question. Thank you.
Quick questions mostly doesn't have quick answers. And basically something about that we spoke last time again, but we have to know one thing, that in 6th century, or in time when Slavs moved to Europe, in these places where we live now, and where we have different Slavs, as a Polish, Russian, Croatia, Czech, Slovak, yeah, we have the same roots, definitely, and we know that, and I told that before, that on so big place is even now in time of globalization to have it one name of the same God, and other side happens. So what's happening in the past, and we have trouble with it these days when we start talking about religion, not about faith, about the religion of Slavs. And then we start thinking, oh, this God with these powers here has one name, on another country another name, and another, and again something, but God is still the same. Doesn't matter how we call him. On other side, what's happening in Slavs countries is that we can find name, and in other countries this God will have little bit different powers, and so this is happening, and back to think that thing is, if we're talking about religion, then I suggest to read books, to try to find answers in history, but history is always right by winners, and for this reason I'm saying that never will be 100% true, even when it's written in history books by professional historian and so on and so on. This could be right just about religion of Slavs, and still I will say always on beginning maybe. But what I'm trying to do, and what is for me more important, and I'm trying to tell this to people, important is faith, and then faith have to be lived and then become true. And if you start to live your faith, and you will have some names and some visions in meditation, and you will start speaking with gods, with ancestors. This is good time, Halloween, and these 7 days is really good time to start because doors are open. Then you can find your own gods, and then you can give them names as you want, and then this will be your Slavic through. And these big gods as a Perun, Svarog, Mokosh, we know that, but it's so powerful and so big gods that it's hard to touch them, hard to even come too close to them. But if we will live our faith, we firstly have to touch our ancestors, and then we can touch gods close to your heart, to your faith, and you don't need to know how many. In my book I have about 47 gods or 49 of names of gods, but personally I met only 12. Yeah, so I don't know if I did answer rightly, but
It was a
Definitely.
beautiful
Thank you
answer.
so much.
Thank you. And thank you, Nikolina, for the question. And it's amazing. So last time we were here 3 hours. Now we are hitting the second closure of the second hour. So we will thank you all.
Not even second. Okay.
We're getting better.
Yeah.
Thank you all so much for joining us this Halloween. Happy and blessed Halloween to all of you, wherever you are. We hope to have inspired you to perhaps try to craft your own ritual based on how our ancestors used to celebrate and honor the season. If so, we're very grateful and we'll be very happy to hear about it. So get in touch with us, share your experiences with us. Thank you, Weleslaw, once again for joining us. Thank you for all the information. Thank you for your perspective, for the experience, and for the incredible and important work that you have been doing all these years. We hope to welcome you to one of our future webinars in winter. Hopefully, we'll talk about the winter season.
Yep.
Yep, there will be an email coming to all of you after this event where you will find links to Weleslav's books and also his contact details if you want to get in touch with him directly, as well as the link to the course Slavic Mythology Decoded with the discount code. So use that opportunity app and sign up. It's full of useful information put together in English with beautiful imagery based on Weleslav's books, including all the webinars that we did with him. So it's a very
And one more thing,
Mhm.
if anyone from people who would like to know something, I'm not perfect in English, but I'm a little bit speaking and a little bit writing. My name is KUZMISIN@gmail.com. Feel free to write your questions. I will try to answer.
We will also include that in the follow-up email, so it's easy for you to reach out to Weleslaw if you want to. So thank you very much. Have a wonderful rest of the day. Have a magical season, and hope to see you soon. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Good day.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you for sharing your knowledge with us once again.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Ďakujem.
Widzenia, dobrú noc.
Dobrú noc.
Albo dobrý deň, pardon.
Albo dobrú noc.
Do Slovenska.
Dovidenia.
Dovidenia.